This is not just flowery language. There are lots of places that will tell you, oh yeah, we believe that. But then you watch how they really function. You know what? What's the old saying? Actions, they always speak louder than words. Huh? So, from Christ, verse 16, the whole body joined together and held together by every supporting ligament. You know, the supporting ligaments, those are, to me, undeniably the relationships that we develop by speaking the truth in love. You know, each member of the body is important. You know, let's just take this one arm, okay? Or each one of those three parts of my finger. Each finger, I've got 5 of them. They each got 3 parts. Every one of those is important. They're connected to the bones in the hand. So you got the center part of the hand. Then you got the wrist, the forearm, elbow, the upper arm with the bicep and the tricep. Then you move up into the complicated area of the shoulder, and tons of moving parts and ligaments and stuff there. You know what? Every one of those pieces would be worthless without what? A ligament. A connection. What makes our connections? Our developing time and relationship with one another. That's why it's important that we spend evenings having meals together. That we invite friends over and don't live in our own little cloister towers. God did not give us our homes to have our ivory tower. He gave us our homes to be outposts of ministry in these frontiers where people are lost, where other members of the body need help and encouragement and strengthening. And when you start living that way, you find your dependency upon God, it just becomes exponentially greater. Guess what that does? Then I realize that I can't depend upon myself, but I must depend upon God who raises the dead. Otherwise, I'm going to be in over my head in a heartbeat and going, no, thank you. I don't want any more of this stuff. It's a little too scary. Why do you think most Christian homes in this country are closed off as ivory towers? That's exactly why. Because they try to do it on their own, because they don't understand what their job is, because they're not being mentored and discipled in these things.
That's a unity. That's the body of Christ.
Yeah, you don't have that unity in body of Christ. You can't have it if you don't spend time together, developing those relationships that make the body work. It won't happen. There's an interesting couple of results of of the body not functioning properly. One, probably the greatest exposition on this one I've ever seen was in the Philip Yancey's book called Where's God When It Hurts? Read that shortly after it first came out, probably 25, 30 years ago. Fantastic book about understanding the reason for pain and suffering. It's a fantastic book. Any Philip Yancey book you get, it's awesome. The guy's an incredible gifted writer. But in that book, one part of it, he talked about leprosy, trying to, inadequately doing so, illustrate the relationship of feeling and even pain to the overall health of the body. And he talked about one time he was over in India and had this young kid, 10, 12 years old, something like that, with him, who was functioning as an interpreter and kind of taking him around to certain places in the city and slums areas. How Yancey reached out to grab this key that locked the door, and tried to turn it. He couldn't. He couldn't get it turned. And the little kid goes, "Here, let me do it." He's thinking, "Yeah, right." And this little kid with leprosy reaches up, grabs the key, and just turns it, just like it's nothing. And all of a sudden, Nancy got insights into the body that he'd never had before. The reason why is because leprosy takes away your feelings. That's why the body gets infected.
Did he actually start bleeding?
Yeah, he did. He actually started bleeding from what he did. And the kid had no idea.
He didn't feel anything.
And so what ends up happening is that becomes infected, gets messed up, doesn't know it, he's not feeling it. Next thing you know, what starts happening? The flesh starts rotting away. Now take that and picture what goes on oftentimes in the body. You have a member of the body that's been in some kind of situation and they got hurt. And instead of doing what's normal, which is saying, "Hey, I hurt, body," right? If you reach out and, hit your finger with a nail while you're on your job, if you don't take care of it, you're going to end up, the body's not going to respond. If that finger doesn't send out a message, goes, "Ow!" what happens? Nothing. And it doesn't get taken care of. However, if it does what's normal and goes, "Ow! That hurt! Help!" what instantly happens? Not only does this whole hand stop what it's doing, drops the hammer and goes, wraps itself around that finger and tries to help alleviate the pain. Your whole body convulses. It's not hurt. It's just the finger that hurts. But that whole body will convulse with your finger in its pain. But if you send no message, there is no assistance. We as members of the body, we need to know. You're hurting? I don't care. "Oh, Jay's so busy. Jay's so busy." I hear that all the time. When I find out later on that somebody was hurting, "Well, why didn't you call me?" "Well, you're so busy." And you know what? I'll drop that hammer. I don't care how busy I am. If there's any way possible, I'm going to drop that hammer and I'm going to be this hand that goes, wraps myself around that aching finger and say, "Let's make it better. Let's look at what's going on. Let's take care of this pain. Let's administer the ointment of the Spirit and bring healing from this balm of Gilead." Oh, guys. What an opportunity we have if we'll just say, "I'm hurting." One of the things, however, that stops people from saying that, and I've seen this happen too, they've been in institutional churches and they go, "Oh, I hurt. And everybody just looks at it and go, "Oh, too bad. I'll pray for you," and walk away. I've heard that message 1,000 times too. So there's a responsibility on both ends, isn't there? For the finger to send out the message and for the body to respond. Just depending on which side of the coin you're in as to which one you need to do. Okay, the other thing, and this one's really interesting. There are messages that the body sends out. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this. Many people haven't because they haven't been with a practitioner who's good enough to understand what the body does. But it's kind of this isn't the exact term. There's another term for it, and I don't remember it right now. But it's kind of a ghost type of feeling. But what happens is you actually develop pains, let's say, in your shoulder. But the real problem can be in some other part of your arm or body. Now, one who's not really a proficient practitioner of physical health will come, and because the pain's coming from this one spot, it seems, they'll just focus on trying to fix that one spot. And miss the fact that the pain's really being caused by something else. I'll give you an example. I had a gal who's a very proficient practitioner of health, who was saying this one gal was coming to her and just had these horrible pains in her shoulder. She kept working on her shoulder and working week after week, and this gal's really, really, really good. And they would come back. You get her feeling good while she was sitting there, and they would come back. And finally the gal goes, well, are you doing something maybe a little different that you weren't doing earlier in the year? Can you think of anything? And the gal thought, and they talked through a number of different things. Finally realized that in the summertime, she kept a full gallon jug of cold water on the top shelf of her refrigerator. And she would reach in and lift that jug out of the refrigerator with just that one arm where the shoulder kept hurting. She said, why don't we fix you today, fix that area up, and you don't do it that way from now on. You reach up and you grab it, slide it to the edge, use both hands, pull it out, kind of using your whole body and the strength of both hands. And let's see how you're feeling next week. Guess what? No pain next week. That's one example. I could give you many others, but you kind of get the idea. It's not always the thing you think it is. And that's times when you need an elder, one who's proficient in the things of the Spirit, to see what's going on. Ask you some questions, pray with you, pray for you, and help you get through this. Pray about that in your own life. Are there any areas like that are getting plugged up that you're not really addressing? Ask God for wisdom on that. Now, all this ties into something that I want Karen to talk to us about. 2 Corinthians 10. Told you we're ready. I'll go there and read it first. Verses. Go to 2 Corinthians chapter 10. Something the Lord has been teaching Karen a lot about. And this all ties in. This will be kind of like the final little move to make a pretty bow to wrap things up this morning. Come on, guys, that was funny. Wake up.
Well, if we start at verse 3. For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretense that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take every thought captive to make it obedient to Christ. I guess it's 6 too. And we will be ready to punish every act of disobedience so it should be useless. But it's to take every thought captive that really, that's really hit me. And
let me just predicate that's the grand conclusion, but the reality we've got to do is like what I've been talking about from the very beginning. We've got to understand we're not dealing with just flesh and blood. Yeah. Paul makes it real clear right here. Our battles aren't there. And if we try to deal with issues from that perspective, just, hey, it's you, man, and I got a battle against you. We miss it. I don't care if that you is another person in the church or an enemy at work or somebody in the government, anything.